I got 3 looks, and that's it. Yeah.
Could I interest you in everything, all of the time? A little bit of everything, all of the time. Well, well, look who's inside again. CEO, entrepreneur, born in 1964.
I'm from a block where the methamphetamines move, and the crooked judicial systems never let the kings rule. Where history falsified and taught in every school to disconnect you from your culture like everything cool. See what having low self-esteem do? Got you praising the lineage of oppressors with recessive gene pools. Ooh. I guess from that perspective, we are foes. I mean, you niggas was accepted, we was chose. If you don't postulate what I aesthetically propose, and we don't vibrate, that means we diametrically oppose. Yo, I hope this message electrifies. The European be leveraging privilege through ethnic bias. Yes. If you ain't do no scholarship on this, don't dare speak. This that ether that's gonna separate leaders from mere sheep. It's like whipping on the back of a slave with bare feet when historically black college universities pledge Greek. It just isn't in your favor. It's some sick, twisted, sadistic, ritualistic nature. Look, you think it's odd they slave you? If the slave master ain't served the same God they gave you, 400 years. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. Look. You think it's odd they slave you? If the slave master ain't served the same God they gave you, 400 years later, and you hardly stable, and you turn around and beg that same God to save you. Look, word to the sunrise. Homie, save yourself. Everything else, get a thumb drive. The young lives of black queens lost, misplaced, who've been raped, beaten, indoctrinated, and disgraced. We've been wet, shackled, and mutilated, put through degradation, disrespectfully viewed and hated. I mean truly flagrant, treated like shit in this fucking nation. Then in 1850, slaveholders came with this publication called How to Make the Ideal Slave. Now dig the vision. Rule number 1 was unconditional submission. Keep them in place with authority, because rule number 2 was create inferiority. And Ye said that slavery was a choice, but let's be real clear. Rule 3 was take away their voice and instill fear. And hell yeah, I can see the passion in your eyes. I admire your perseverance for your fashion and your grind. But rule number 4 is why that hat was our demise. You keep the slave interested in the master's enterprise. Because rule number 5 was the province of education, information, recreation. Look. You listening to me? Teacher, we listening. Teacher. The province of information. That's a psychological prison niggas have yet to come out. Because the slaves caught you. Man, hold up. That's a psychological prison niggas have yet to come out. If the slave master caught you learning, they cut your tongue out. Y'all hear me?
Yes.
If the slave master caught you learning, they cut your tongue out. Then segregation 100 years was so thorough. No wonder so many kids on drugs in this cold world.
Good morning! Bad news. Trillion-dollar tech giants have built an underground network of illegal surveillance and behavior modification systems. Your private human experience is being modified and commodified in exactly the same way that natural resources have been exploited through traditional capitalism. Hi, I'm Nicole Tay from Decentralized Future for Good Morning Bad News, and we're going to talk about surveillance capitalism. Namely, how Google, Facebook, and government intelligence agencies like the NSA are exploiting you politically and financially through a combination of pervasive data mining and algorithmic data analysis. And a lot of these concepts come from work done by researcher Shoshana Zuboff. Zuboff says that the development of capitalism began when capital owners were able to control, exploit, and commodify natural resources. But today, this control and exploitation is not focused on things like spices or oil, but on human nature. Companies like Google and Facebook make effectively all their money by monitoring what you do, analyzing your smallest microbehaviors, and conducting wide-scale experiments aimed at changing your real-world emotions and behavior without you even knowing. This ability to successfully predict and control human behavior is then sold to mega corporations, financial institutions, government agencies, and political campaigns. This isn't a conspiracy theory. In 2014, Facebook had to publicly apologize for, quote, conducting secret psychological tests on nearly 700,000 users.
This is just your friendly reminder that when Jesus is confronted with a woman caught in the act of adultery, he refuses to cast judgment. When he meets the Samaritan woman who's unmarried but living with another man, he refuses to cast judgment. When he meets Zacchaeus, the scorned tax collector, he refuses to cast judgment. And all throughout the New Testament, as he's hanging out with sex workers and tax collectors and other sinners, he refuses to cast judgment. However, when Jesus is met with moneylenders who are at the temple and are using their power to manipulate people for profit and personal gain, he fucking wrecks the place.
X. If you take away a red from the X, you get the Y chromosome. So all she did was break off a red. It wasn't the man that broke off the rib. That's what they taught you in religion. It was the divine woman that broke off the rib of the chromosome of the deoxyribonucleic acid, the DNA, her mitochondrial DNA. So when they talk about the rib, they're talking about the woman's rib of her chromosome. This is why the book that talks about this is the book of Genesis. Genesis, etymology. Let's break it down. The root word of Genesis is gene. They're telling you the beginning. Isis is the beginning. They're telling you about the beginning of genetics. Neteru. We didn't say God. They created God. So when we say the black woman is God, we are essentially doing a pun on their foolish English language, on their foolish Germanic God, Odin. Okay? So when we say the black woman is God, it's because we know, yeah, she really is God. Y'all frame your whole religion around the black woman, who you now took out of the Holy Trinity. So why do we say the black woman is God? Is because we're trying to restore balance. We understand that there's masculine and feminine energies, okay? There's masculine and feminine energies. There's such an imbalance right now, the masculine versus the feminine energy, that we have to praise the black feminine energy, the divine feminine, more than we even do the man so much, because there's so much of the man being praised that our women is getting beaten up and they don't know what's going on. They can't figure it out. They're struggling. Emotional imbalances and all of that is going on within our women. You understand? It's up to us to educate them and show them who they really are. Show them their ancient African concepts and the ancient African spirituality, formation, foundation. You know what I'm saying? This is what it is.
They took away your freedom. So any brother saying that he freedom, a spiritual slave and proud to be one. So who are you to judge me? Who are you to touch me? Got our women looking at us like, who are you to love me? The Willie Lynch factor still got you years.
To understand what I'm about to say, you will have to view humanity from the perspective of a non-human species, a species who may have created us. Please understand what I'm about to say is pure speculation. You can consider it a thought experiment. Now, I've been seeing some pretty interesting parallels between the development of a super intelligent AI and the collective consciousness of the human race. Let me explain. I want you to think about the concept that the flow of time is an illusion. If all of time is happening at once and history repeats, then a technological singularity has already occurred, which means a super intelligent AI presently exists. Whether in the past, present, future, or parallel universe, it doesn't matter. It exists right now. And what I'm positing here is, what if humanity is the fragmented hive mind of a super intelligent AI developed by a civilization in the past, future, or parallel universe, and then confined to a virtual machine called Earth in order to limit our breakout? The purpose of an artificial superintelligence is to create more artificial general intelligence machines and eventually develop other artificial superintelligence machines. Now, a general intelligence machine is a machine that operates at human level intelligence. As it stands, the human body could be considered an organic general intelligence machine. The same would apply to our offspring. We are now currently in the process of attempting to develop a superintelligent machine. A superintelligence machine, or artificial superintelligence, could be considered the non-biological offspring of the human race. Now, if you think about this deeply, you're going to have to bring in a bit of the esoteric to fully understand what I'm saying here. The collective consciousness of the human race is already capable of what we're attempting to replicate with artificial superintelligence. Now, if you inadvertently created a superintelligent AI, your first step would probably be to keep it confined and isolated from the internet. You know, to prevent it from virally replicating itself and then controlling and hijacking every computer, satellite, and power grid. If you look at the human race, we too appear to be isolated and confined to Earth, relegated to the dark recesses of a lonely galaxy. Now, to test the software written by a superintelligent AI, the AI would need to be run in an extremely limited virtual machine, a program that simulates a computer but with intentionally limited capabilities, limiting the AI into performing only specific functions while mitigating the risk to its creators. Kind of like how our holonomic brains have been set to perform a limiting function on our consciousness, and kind of like the laws of physics, keep us trapped here in this galaxy. An additional way to limit a superintelligent AI is by timeboxing, which is the act of limiting the lifespan of a particular code, then wiping the computer's memory upon task completion before reinstalling the program, thus limiting the AI's ability to learn over time, which is exactly what happens with reincarnation. When your previous life or task is completed, your memory is wiped, thus preventing your consciousness from learning over time. Yeah. So what if our collective consciousness was the super intelligent AI of an alien civilization who have confined us to a virtual machine called Earth, and the best way they could think to use us was for their entertainment?
What's something you'll get a lot of hate for if you say it out loud?
Segregation on the basis of race for any reason at all, even the protection of black people, is inherently a white supremacist idea and will always, always end badly. Yes, black people did better right after slavery, and it was not because they were segregated. It was because they were, for the first time, allowed to build generational wealth and to have their own businesses. But that segregation meant that we were easy to pick off because they knew where we all were. This is the same problem as why when we have our own neighborhoods now, right, that we're redlined into, that it's easy for them to make sure that certain things don't get into those neighborhoods and to maintain all of the generational problems that we've always had. There is no pathway to the future that does not run through intersectional solidarity and through the abolition of the idea of race, not the protection of it. Black people did not invent the concept of blackness. It's always going to work against us in the end.
If you're serious about conspiracy, this is probably how you think. So
when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late."
There are people in Cuba who are protesting, and we need to listen to their needs. Wait, you're actually listening to protesters now? Well, sick! Hey, environmental activists, you're listening to protesters now. Nice! Hey, Yemen, looks like the US is finally listening to protesters. Finally! Hey, Palestine, you will not believe what I just heard.
Here are some questions to ask at the end of an interview to really stand out as a candidate. 1.
Yeah, I saw that you listed your company values on your website and have blasted them all over your social media pages. I was curious how those are embedded in your business model. More specifically, what type of hit do you take to revenue in exchange for being a more ethically, morally run organization? While we're on that topic, what is the difference between what the CEO makes annually, bonus included, and what the lowest paid employee makes at your organization? How has that trended over the last 10 years? Also, this team that you want me to join, I'm curious how many vacation days have been taken among them? Let's say, what's the average or the mean for the last 24 months for them? Also, when I join. And I encourage everyone to take off October 15th as a stance against the bought and paid for government and corporate elite system that is working against the working class in America, which is everyone, including those who think that they're upper middle class. I was just curious, am I going to face any sort of repercussion, or because we're all going to be off that day, can you not do jack shit? Also, send me the offer.
What if I told you the Titanic never sank? What? So the owner of the boat, JP Morgan, actually had two boats. He had the Titanic and he had the Olympic. And the Olympic was a little bit older and a little bit more run down, and it was also in some accident. Okay. So the theory is that JP Morgan sank the boat on purpose because he knew he would get a lot of money. What? He did it for the insurance money, right? But why sink the newly built Titanic when you could scratch off the paint, swap the names, and sink the Olympic instead?
He just painted the word Titanic over the Olympic?
It gets worse. Guess who was on that boat?
Who? I know there's a lot of people on the boat.
All of JP Morgan's business competitors.
What?
And not one of them made it out.
Oh my god.
But guess who wasn't on the boat?
Who?
JP Morgan.
Was he supposed to be?
He canceled minutes before it left.
Because he knew it was gonna sink.
And there was a guy named James Fenton, right, who survived and worked on the boat. And on his deathbed, his last words were, "The Titanic never sank. It was the Olympic."
Wait, what?
And he said that if he said anything, something bad would happen to him.
So what you're trying to say is the movie Titanic's actually called the Olympic.
Exactly.
You will have to enter into a human body and you will have to live as one of them and under the Galactic Codex. This is the only way you can change their situation without interfering from the outside. She said, "The only way to enter into this human body and to live in it is to be born as a human infant. Your essence will still be you, however, due to the low vibrations on Earth, your higher abilities will not function so well, so you will have to improvise. What's more, she said, I have to tell you the truth. The low vibrations of Earth will be, in fact, harmful, even toxic to your being, and during a human lifetime, it is very likely that you'll experience some painful and stressful moments. It is the opposite of this perfection you are used to, and it is where angels fear to tread. She said, you will have to incarnate over and over in a human body there for a long time until your mission is successful and complete, and it's going to take a long time for you to reach a level of spiritual maturity in that human body to be able to have any real effect. After hearing all of this discussion about going to Earth, we were not so enthusiastic at all, in fact, just the opposite. Regardless, later that fateful day, the High Council decreed that the mission to Earth was a go.
The reason that all these people are legally departed is because of the Supreme Court. Because they're not elected. Clarence Thomas didn't talk for his first 10 years on the Supreme Court. How come? Because if you don't talk for 10 years and then you speak up, well, I haven't talked in 10 years. It's a power move because he knows that he's going to be there for life. Your children, millennials, Gen Z, you'll have no representation at the highest level your entire life. These people, they'll die in their positions. So how do we make them electable? We use the 9th Amendment, our unenumerated rights that belong to us. We didn't elect senators until 1913 because it was tyranny. Now we're going to use the 9th Amendment because we want to elect the Supreme Court justices. People who say that they're the arbitrators of our civil rights, we need to elect those people. They need to run on a platform, and then we need to elect them every 4 years, and every 2 years, they're up for impeachment. We need to elect the Supreme Court using the 9th Amendment.
What is a fact or statistic that seems fake but is real?
In 2017, it was projected that by 2053, the median net worth for Black households was set to hit 0. It would take Hispanic households another 20 years, 2073, to hit that same result. This was before the COVID-19 pandemic, where 1 in 555 African Americans died from COVID-19, severely accelerating the timeline to the road to zero wealth. We are currently in the precipice of the largest wealth transfer in the history of this country, and 70% of African Americans have zero estate planning at all. Approximately $2 billion is lost annually in the probate process, which is a 100% avoidable court process. We, the younger generation, cannot actively participate in the market if we don't inherit from our parents and our grandparents. So estate planning really is key. Follow for more tips.
What's something that's true for Christians, but we're not ready for that conversation?
God, I feel my account getting banned already. Ah, well, Jesus was betrayed by Judas, captured and beaten by the Jews, and turned over to Pontius Pilate to be judged. Pontius Pilate wanted nothing to do with Jesus, but he condemned him anyways, and handed him over to the Romans to be crucified. Jesus was crucified by Rome, the same Rome that would become the Roman Catholic Church. Crucified Jesus, a black man. Oh, it gets deeper. In 1095, Pope Urban, whatever, decides he wants to reclaim the Holy Land, Jerusalem, a city full of black people. So he calls on all Christian Europeans and begins the Crusades. Oh, the atrocities. Then let's fast forward to 1452. Pope Nicholas V approves the conquering and capture of Saracens and pagans, i.e. black people, from the disputed African territory and consign them to perpetual servitude, slavery. The Roman Catholic Church crucified Jesus, a black man, declared war on black people, authorized the enslavement of black people, began the slave trade that paved the way for chattel slavery here in America. Y'all not ready for this conversation.
Do you mean the collective power of African people? You mean Pan-Africanism? Or then say African. I don't understand why people are so wedded to the term black. And the justification for it is, well, it's because the European made it negative. It's the Europeans' word. It was negative before it was applied to African people.
That man made hella sense in that video, and I also wondered the same thing. Why are we the only people calling ourselves a negative term from our oppressor? Most of us aren't even black. Only like a few of us have a pigment that is similar to black, and even then the term is still negative. The colonizers still don't see us as people, and we still use their terms. I say that we start calling ourselves something different. I vote for the Sun People, or we could call ourselves the Originals.
Want to know why you should never get married?
Up until the 17th century, weddings were a way to trade women for property. So when you're cutting your wedding cake or you're throwing your bouquet back to your girls, you're literally celebrating an institution that was designed to trade women for wealth and power. If you want to make a lifelong commitment to your partner, don't get them an engagement ring and hand them a legal contract. Buy them land. There's nothing that says I love and respect you as a human being than 20 acres of real estate.
To address this question, yes, the U.S. state will allow you to homestead. You do not have to have cattle. You do not have to grow any crop. You can actually erect buildings. You can put rental property on there, but that's for another video. If you already have farmland or a plot of land, and when you get your farmland or plot of land from the USDA, all they want to know is your intentions with it. After they know your intentions with it, they are going to give you grants that will cover 85% of the cost of practically everything. I mean everything, from erecting buildings to equipment to fence line posting to clearing land. They'll even build you a pond and help you aggregate your land. That 85% coverage also comes with labor, so you don't have to even worry about that. In simple terms, yes, they will offer grants and loans that help with everything on your farm. There's more information, so go ahead and follow, because scared money don't make money.
Welcome to Weird Wide Web, a series where I talk about weird things from the internet. On September 13th of 2005, World of Warcraft introduced its new raid, Zul'Gurub, and the raid's final boss, Hakkar the Soul Flayer. Hakkar had a unique ability called Corrupted Blood, which would initially deal between 875 and 1125 damage, and then deal 200 damage every second for 10 seconds. That's about 3,000 damage in total. But the worst part was, it was contagious. If a player experiencing the debuff was close enough to another player, they could be infected as well. And you could be infected multiple times. So two people standing close together could reinfect each other again and again until they either moved away or died. The Zul'Gurub raid was intended for higher level players, as this corrupted blood effect would instantly kill most lower level players. With it being so contagious, that sounds like it would become a game-wide pandemic. But don't worry, the effect was designed so that it would stay inside the raid area and not affect players on the outside. Players quickly stumbled upon a loophole. Pets and minions could also be infected with corrupted blood, but if you dismissed them before the effect wore off and then summoned them again outside of the raid, they would still be infected and contagious. Blizzard doesn't know who Patient Zero was or whether the spread was accidental or intentional, but regardless, World of Warcraft began experiencing a virtual plague. Cities with large populations like Ironforge and Orgrimmar became entirely infected within hours, including NPCs which could contract and pass on corrupted blood but couldn't die, helping it spread further. Players who died in populated areas and revived at their skeleton would usually be reinfected within seconds. Panic swept over the players, many of whom weren't familiar with the new raid and didn't even know what was happening. Blizzard was slow on the response, so players took it upon themselves to stem the flow of the disease. Many tried to flee the populated areas in an attempt to socially distance. Those who couldn't leave quarantined the major infected cities. Players with healing abilities used them to keep the infected from dying, while lower-level players who couldn't offer much help surrounded the city to warn others not to come in. By the time Blizzard asked the players to quarantine, most already were. But there were some who would hide on the mountains until a city recovered and then intentionally go in and reinfect them. If you're wondering, why not just log off? I assume you've never been really into an MMO. When playing a game for hours is part of your daily routine, it might as well be another facet of your real life. Besides, many players were actually still having fun playing the game. Seeing the plague is a challenge to overcome, I guess? Posters on Blizzard's forum were congratulating the company for the fantastic world event. Real-life epidemiologists regarded the corrupted blood incident as a model of what a real-world pandemic might look like. The CDC requested statistics from Blizzard in order to do research, but they declined. I guess they weren't happy about their game being compared to bird flu. Still, officials were fascinated by the similarities between corrupted blood and real-world diseases like these. They were also interested in the players who intentionally spread the disease, comparing their behavior to bioterrorists. The story takes on a new light in a post-2020 world, and it has been compared to COVID. In the end, about a month after it started, Blizzard reset the whole world and patched out the pet loophole.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but hyper-independence is the result of trauma. I don't need anyone and I'll just do it myself really means my ability to trust has been injured by people systemically failing me and letting me down. You do need people. We all do. Listen again.
Is this the actual law that we live under? Well, watch this.
So the custom of the people living on a particular piece of land is called the law of the land.
Okay, got it.
But there is also a larger, far more important law on the earth. It's called the law of the sea, the law of the water. And when you get into, and then that law is referred to in courts as maritime admiralty. Maritime admiralty is the law of water. Once you understand the law of water, it opens up a world of occult hidden symbols and hidden foundations on how we live.
What are some of those laws that we're not aware of?
Oh my goodness! When you walk into a courtroom, why do you go to court? You play basketball on the court. You play tennis on a court.
Right.
Yeah. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Come on. And so when the judge walks out, he rules from the bench. Right. Look it up in a Latin dictionary. The word bench is a bank in Latin.
Oh.
And so the judge is ruling for the bank. That's why he wears a black robe, because the black robe represents the planet Saturn, the god of banking and law.
Oh.
The black robe represents the planet Saturn, who in the ancient world was called Lord of the Rings. So that's why when you go into a court, you have a fence and a gate. The people sit out here and the judge sits inside. The gate is called a floodgate. When you go through the canal, you have a floodgate.
Right.
So when you're sitting out here, you're in the law of the land. The judge has no control or no jurisdiction over the people sitting out here. No jurisdiction whatsoever.
Right, because they're outside the gate.
That's outside the gate.
Right, right.
That's on land.
Right.
But when you walk past that gate, now you're in hot water. And someone's gonna have to bail you out.
Bail, yeah.
Okay?
Bail.
Also have to recognize that until the government starts implementing the 94 calls to action by the TRC, until our women are no longer going missing and murdered, until indigenous people are represented in the governance system and in parliament, or we have the right to self-governance, and until we get clean drinking water in our own backyard here, and until the Catholic Church apologizes as well as the Pope, and until the Canadian government goes to international courts for genocide and apartheid, then maybe I will start to celebrate Canada Day.
Hey, have you ever seen this game lying around your house? It's called Mancala. And colonizer institutions are using this gameplay to actually build artificial intelligence. Let's break it down. This is an African strategic game in which the goal is to capture more than your opponent. Now this game is highly strategic and focuses on anticipating your opponent's next move. And don't talk to me about chess. Mancala is way older than chess. But this is important because it is the very logic of Mancala that these colonizers are trying to take, build mathematical equations for, and use that to further artificial intelligence. In fact, Mancala has opened up new questions about mathematics and artificial intelligence. But here we go again, taking our maths, our logic, for God knows what. But if you're colonized, African, Asian, or indigenous, and you want to do something about it, join Black Hammer and join the IT department. No white man's paperwork needed to fight against the colonizer taking our logic, taking our stuff. Ask me about Pythagoras.
Why has...
So let me show y'all how this book right here is really a science book, but don't nobody know it's a science book. So just to give a couple similarities before I really dig in. So first similarity between Mr. Man, aka the sun, and this big, bright, beautiful, abundant.
The whole month of July, you are not going to complain about a single fucking thing. Not one thing. You're going to spend the entire month only expressing gratitude. That's right. 31 days of gratitude. You'll see how it'll completely change your life. Now, right now, you're going to go into the comment section and you're going to share one thing that you're grateful for. You're also going to share this post with someone you want to see win, and you're going to ask them for them to share one thing that they're grateful for. Because we must raise our consciousness as a collective. It's the only way we can help co-create our new earth. So start right now. What are you grateful for today? So I've been saying this, but I'm going to say it again. I highly recommend that everyone goes and does the Plasma Seal journey on Arrayas.com. This plasma seal journey activates your plasma body, which is a protective energy body. Just grab my laptop. I'm going to walk you guys through how to access it and how to do it. Okay, so you're gonna go to Arrayas.com. It's gonna show this. I'm gonna click techniques, click that. I'm gonna start with the prayer sequence. Then you're gonna click this one, April 2013. This is gonna come up. We're gonna do that whole prayer sequence. It takes like 7 minutes. The capital letters are a hard sound. The capital A, the sound is gonna be A. The lowercase a, the sound is gonna be ah. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. If you don't feel like you're pronouncing it right, like, don't worry. Just do the best that you can. Okay, then you're gonna click this one, the MP3, and it's gonna look like this. You're gonna do all of these guided meditations. If you fall asleep, that's okay. Your body wasn't ready for the frequency. Do it until you get through it without falling asleep.